The rule of two. Only two Sith Lords can exist at any given time. A master to embody the power of the dark side, and an apprentice to crave it. What if craving that power wasn't natural? What if it was manufactured? What if the Emperor simply built himself another apprentice the same way he built Darth Vader? Because let's be honest, that is exactly what he did with Anakin. He isolated him, manipulated him, fed his fears, encouraged his worst impulses, and then convinced him that the only person who could save him was Palpatine himself. Vader wasn't created overnight. He was engineered, and for nearly 20 years it worked perfectly, until Luke Skywalker came along, until Anakin Skywalker remembered who he truly was, until the weapon became a father again. So what happens when that plan fails before it ever begins? What happens when Anakin rejects the dark side all the way back on Mustafar? Well, if you're the Emperor, you don't give up. You adapt. You find someone else. And there just so happens to be another Jedi Master lying broken somewhere on Coruscant. A man who dedicated every waking moment of his life to the Jedi Order. A man who watched that order collapse around him. A man who came within inches of killing Darth Sidious and stopping it all. Mace Windu. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Mace is dead. Maybe, but this is Star Wars, and people have survived much worse. Darth Maul was cut in half and fueled by hatred alone. Anakin lost 3 limbs and caught on fire. Palpatine himself, somehow, came back decades later. So is it really that difficult to believe that Mace Windu survived losing a hand and being thrown from a window? Maybe he landed on a passing transport. Maybe a maintenance platform broke his fall. Maybe he used the Force instinctively before losing consciousness. Whatever happened, one thing is certain. The fall didn't kill him. The landing almost did. Hours after leaving Mustafar, Palpatine returns to Coruscant. Not to celebrate, not to inspect the Jedi Temple. He has something much more important on his mind. A replacement. The Emperor descends into the lower levels of Coruscant, searching through the endless maze of skyscrapers, landing platforms, and industrial districts. Far below the shining city above, he finds exactly what he is looking for. A body, burned by Force lightning, missing a hand, one leg shattered beyond repair, barely alive. Mace Windu. The Jedi Master opens his eyes just long enough to see the familiar face staring down at him, the last face he ever wanted to see. Palpatine smiles. You have lost everything, Master Windu. Darkness takes him. When Mace awakens, weeks have passed. The war is over, the Republic is gone. The Jedi Order has been exterminated. His friends are dead. His students are dead. Everything he spent his life protecting is gone, and the only reason he is still breathing is because the Emperor allows it. At first, Mace refuses everything. Every offer, every conversation, every attempt at manipulation. But Palpatine is patient. Mace always believed that peace required strength, that evil needed to be confronted, that difficult choices had to be made. In many ways, Mace was already closer to the dark side than most Jedi ever realized. Not because he was evil, but because he was willing to stare into darkness longer than anyone. That is the entire purpose of a pod. To dance on the edge without falling. The problem is that eventually there is no edge left. Months turned into years. Palpatine never asks Mace to embrace hatred. He simply asks questions. What did mercy accomplish? What did the Jedi's compassion accomplish? What did following the code so closely do for you, for anyone? It's all gone. The Jedi are gone. The Republic is gone. And you failed. Little by little, Mace begins believing the impossible. Maybe the Jedi deserved to fall. Maybe they were weak. Maybe order is more important than freedom. Maybe peace requires fear. And eventually, Mace Windu dies. Not physically, but mentally and spiritually. Everything that made him who he was, a Jedi, is stripped away until only one purpose remains. Service. The Emperor even gives him a new name. Darth Judicar, a judge, an executioner, a weapon. Years pass, and while Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, and eventually Ahsoka rebuild the Jedi in secret, the Empire tightens its grip on the galaxy. Entire systems disappear into Imperial control. Resistance cells are crushed before they can ever gain momentum. Senators vanish and governors rule through fear. And whenever someone becomes enough of a threat to matter, Judicar arrives. Unlike Vader, Judicar isn't fueled by rage. He's fueled by certainty that makes him far more dangerous. Vader, sometimes, could be manipulated through his emotions, by what was left of Anakin inside, but Judicar believes he is doing the right thing. Every execution is justified. Every atrocity is necessary. Every innocent life lost is simply the cost of maintaining the order. And because of that conviction, he becomes the most feared figure in the Empire. By that time Luke and Leia reach adulthood, stories of the Emperor's enforcer have spread across the galaxy. Entire Rebel cells surrender when his ship enters orbit. Surviving Jedi go into hiding. Even Imperial officers fear him, not because he is cruel, but because he genuinely believes everything he is doing is for the greater good. Years later, after a close Imperial encounter near Dagobah nearly exposes the Skywalker family, Anakin and Padme finally come to realization. Waiting is no longer enough. The Empire is stronger than ever. The Death Star is nearing completion, and every day they delay, more worlds fall under Imperial control. For nearly 2 decades, they have been preparing for this moment. Luke and Leia have trained under Anakin, under Obi-Wan, under Yoda, and even under Ahsoka Tano. The children are no longer children. They are Jedi, and it is finally time to fight back. One message is sent. A small astromech droid carries it. R2-D2. Its destination, Mon Mothma. The message is simple. The Skywalkers are alive, and they are ready. Within days, the rebellion launches the most daring assault in its history. Not a desperate attack, not a last stand, an invasion. As rebel forces engage Imperial defense around the Death Star, an unmarked transport slips through the chaos. Aboard are Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, and Leia Skywalker, and before departing, they leave one final instruction behind. If we fail, hide, survive, and rebuild. The future of the Jedi cannot die with us. The Skywalkers cut their way through the station with frightening efficiency. Stormtroopers fall, security teams are overwhelmed, and corridors become battlefields. A father and his children fighting side by side, 2 generations of hope marching towards the heart of the Empire, and eventually they arrive to the throne room, where the Emperor is waiting. Of course he is. Palpatine sits motionless upon his throne, calm, patient, and almost amused. Leia ignites her saber and charges forward. This ends today, or at least it should have, but a purple blade suddenly erupts from the darkness with a crack, and Leia strikes stop inches from the Empire's face. The room falls silent as a masked figure steps forward, tall, armored, and unfamiliar, but yet somehow familiar at the same time. Anakin feels it instantly, something buried deep within the Force, something impossible. Before he can place it, the figure speaks. This party's over, young Skywalker. The voice hits Anakin like a thermal detonator. It can't be. Leia tightens her grip on the saber. How do you know my name? The masked warrior chuckles. I don't. Slowly he removes the mask, and yellow eyes stare directly at Anakin. But I know your father's. And the blood drains from Anakin's face. Mace? Luke looks between them both, confused and concerned. Dad, who was that? Windu smiles, a cold, humorless smile. They don't know, Anakin, do they?